I watch a lot of CNN, and I watch a lot of Fox News. I stay away from MSNBC. I like to hear both sides, and then I make my own determinations, even though I'm not as a big a fan of many of the hosts after 5 p.m. on Fox News. But I do enjoy CNN a lot, and the guy we have with us on the line right now, he's got a really good new book out. It's called True Crimes and Misdemeanors. He is the chief legal analyst over at CNN, and very happy to have him on the show. He is Jeffrey Toobin. Jeffrey, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
How come I can't come to Las Vegas to join you in person? That's what I really want.
You've spent some time
with all this journalism stuff. I miss going to Vegas, man.
So what does Jeffrey Toobin do on a Saturday night in Las Vegas? That's what I want to know.
Craps.
You like craps? Are you a pass?
I love the craps table. You know what? I love watching I know I love to gamble. I mean, I shoot craps. I play a little 21. But I just love to watch other people lose thousands of dollars at a time because it just never seems real. I mean, you know how fast a blackjack table works.
Absolutely.
I mean, these people are throwing the $500 chips, and you know, it's just mind-blowing to me how people can do it. And you know what? Here's an insight. That's why those casinos are so big, is because people don't make money there. They leave money there.
You're absolutely right.
You're
absolutely right. I read a stat in a lot of these books that say, you know, at one point or another, 80% of gamblers are up in a casino at one point, but about 5% of them actually leave up. It's unbelievable. Yeah, it's crazy.
At 1 point.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. It's called a degenerate gambler, which I am, Jeffrey. But anyway, when you come back to Las Vegas, we'll have to play a little craps and play some pass line and have some fun.
Love to do that.
Yeah, that'd be great. So your new book's out, True Crimes and Misdemeanors, and obviously it focuses on the Mueller investigation, how Trump survived it, and impeachment. So, Jeffrey, I get a lot of people that call into this show, certainly during the Mueller investigation, that said, listen, Trump did absolutely nothing wrong. It's a farce. And my argument is always, well, wait a second. There's clear examples of obstruction in there. So how do you respond, Jeffrey, to somebody who is a Trump supporter, who might be biased, and says, Jeffrey, this is a load of crap. Trump did absolutely nothing wrong. It was a hoax. What's your response to that?
Well, I think you put your finger on it. I mean, the story of the Russia involvement, let's call it the collusion investigation. I do think it is true that the president committed no crime in that part of the investigation. The irony is, he seemed to want to commit a crime, but Putin was happy to do his work on Trump's behalf without Trump's personal involvement, and I don't think there was any involvement there. But once he got to the White House and you saw him go to James Comey, the FBI director, and say, go easy on Michael Flynn, and then firing Comey when he didn't go easy on Flynn, and then telling his White House counsel, Don McGahn, to fire Mueller, and then telling McGahn to lie to investigators about about Mueller's Trump's plan to fire Mueller. All of those things, which are indeed spelled out in the Mueller report, I think are definitely crimes, and
sure.
That is, you can decide you don't care, that you think he's a great president anyway. But on the facts, I think he did commit those crimes.
So let me ask you this then. Why, and this is the billion-dollar question, why did Mueller, in his report, not explicitly state that the president had obstructed justice? Didn't that leave the door open for Trump?
It left the door open for Trump, and more particularly, it left the door open for William Barr, the Attorney General, to distort what Mueller actually said. I mean, this is a big part of my book, which is sort of the behind-the-scenes story of the Mueller investigation. And Mueller was someone who was ultimately a very cautious person, someone who's devoted his life to institutions, whether it's the Marine Corps or the Justice Department or the FBI. And he thought that since Justice Department policy prohibited him from indicting the president for obstruction of justice, it would be unfair to say the president committed obstruction of justice because he wouldn't have his day in court to defend himself. Now, I think that reasoning was excessively cautious and deferential to the president. Mm-hmm. I think Mueller should have said quite clearly what the evidence compelled, but I think it was indicative of how Mueller whether in this decision or his refusal to issue a grand jury subpoena for Trump's testimony, was, the irony is he was accused of excessive zeal. I think there are better grounds for criticizing him for insufficiency.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. If you're just joining us, we're speaking with Jeffrey Toobin. He is the CNN chief legal analyst. His new book out is called True Crimes and Misdemeanors and focuses, of course, on the Mueller report. Jeffrey, since you're on the CNN set, it seems like almost on a nightly basis, I have to ask you about this. I mean, the attacks from people on the right, it starts with Donald Trump all the way down, and I know you don't focus on this in your book. People calling CNN fake news. Usually it's the president, and then it works its way down to his followers. And this culture started, 4 years ago? I mean, did you ever think you'd be in a spot you're in now? You've been with CNN for a while now where, people with the attacks, fake news, CNN is fake news, it's the liberal media, and it's this and it's that. I mean, you guys get this on a nightly basis. What are your comments and thoughts on that?
Well, look, I think the most important thing to say is that we're big boys and big girls, and we have microphones, and we are very good subjects of criticism. I mean, we are fair game. I don't see any problem with criticizing the work that we do. However, what's happened under Trump is that it has reached a pitch and a personal level that has exposed many of us to physical danger, and the mere allegation of fake news is basically a substitute for criticism. To simply dismiss what we do as fake news without actually engaging with the substance of what we find, that I think is really irresponsible. And for the president repeatedly to call us, enemies of the people. There's a reason why journalism and the press is in the First Amendment to the Constitution, because it's considered a basic right of Americans to be informed. Right. And I think to call us enemies of the people, obviously he's free to do that under his First Amendment rights, but I think it's a pernicious thing, and I think it has just coarsened the debate and hasn't really eliminated anything. As you're
you were a practicing attorney for a long period of time, and of course now a legal analyst for CNN. I have to ask you about this because we just did a story last segment, and I'm sure you probably heard about this. Michelle Obama doing a podcast saying that she feels like she suffers from a minor case of depression, and then one of Donald Trump's own attorneys does an interview on Fox and says she's depressed because she's a liberal. This is an attorney for President Donald Trump. I mean, if somebody said something like that on CNN, what if somebody said something like that on CNN, the other way around? I mean, you guys would be attacked 24/7. What do you make of an attorney for the President of the United States making a comment like that?
Well, look, I think you have to start with the president himself, and his own comments have been so outrageous and so distorted. Whether he's saying that Joe Biden hates God, I mean, the real touchstone of the Trump presidency is, I think he has violated all the norms, all the unwritten rules that we expect presidents to follow. The anger and the vitriol and the lying that we've heard from Trump has been so extreme that, I am less concerned about something a lawyer says on Fox, but I'm much more concerned about the extraordinary lies that the president himself tells day after day on Twitter and elsewhere.
I want to ask you legally, if the president, as you know, keeps pushing the hydroxychloroquine and then, tries to push it out with retweeting it from a doctor who believes in demon sperm, and then people start taking hydroxychloroquine maybe without a prescription and die, are there any legal ramifications for that? For example, when he talks about possibly injecting yourself with disinfectant. I mean, doesn't the president have a responsibility? There's a lot of, as you know, Jeffrey, sadly, there's a lot of dumb people in this country. There's a lot of smart people, but the president represents all of us, right? Don't you think he should be a little bit more careful with his words? Because there's a lot of people out there that listen to every word that he says.
I think this is a good example of the difference between sort of legal liability and norms. Do I think that the president could actually be sued by someone who uses some quack cure that he suggests? No, I don't. I mean, I really don't think the legal system is set up. Fortunately, the legal system demands more direct cause and effect for a lawsuit.
Right.
But of course the president should behave better. Of course the president shouldn't be promoting quack cures, shouldn't be listening to lunatic doctors like the one he did, and much less talking about bleach. I mean, again, this is not a legal matter as much as a moral or political matter. And the good news is that the voters will have a chance to render a verdict in November, and that's really the appropriate place for it, not the court.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey, I want to talk to you a little bit about a chapter in your book, True Crimes and Misdemeanors, involving Michael Avenatti. Michael Avenatti, friend of the show, he's been on the show a bunch of times. As you know, he's not doing very well right now. With that being said, I wanted to give you my opinions on this whole...
Can I just interrupt?
Sure.
I think not doing very well is an interesting way to describe someone who's a convicted felon.
Well, no question.
Yes,
There's no question about that.
It is true. He is not doing very well.
There is no question about that. He is a convicted felon. We agree on that, and he made some mistakes. There's no doubt about that. But here's my opinion on his whole situation. You could tell me legally, with your expertise, whether you agree or not. I don't believe, number one, he would have been treated the way he's been treated, nor do I believe he may have even been convicted of any crimes if he didn't go after the most powerful people in the world, which includes Donald Trump. He's been going after Donald Trump far before Donald Trump was president of the United States. I truly believe that this was partly political. Did Michael Avenatti make mistakes? Did he commit some crimes? Well, he's a convicted felon. But with that being said, I just think he's been treated and mistreated as a terrorist sitting in El Chapo's cell, as you know. I think because he went after the most powerful people in the world. Would you agree with that?
Respectfully, I disagree. When you look at the specific nature of the charges, particularly the California case, which has nothing to do, the case hasn't come to trial yet, the case that has nothing to do with politics. It's about stealing from other lawyers. It's about stealing from clients. I just think, I got to know Michael well. I like Michael personally. I think he brought some important things to light about the president's, financial dealings with Stormy Daniels. But based on what I've seen, Michael was deeply out of control when it came to his personal and financial life, and I think that's his problem, not any sort of vendetta against him.
You do in the book talk a little bit about Stormy Daniels and that whole situation that went down. I personally believe that that happened. I believe that Donald Trump did have sex with Stormy Daniels. I don't think you throw around $120,000. Here you go. Here's a gift for you. I believe he had Michael Cohen, pay her off to keep her mouth shut. What do you make of that whole situation?
Well, I agree with you. I think there's no doubt what went on here is that, they had this one-night stand. She was about to disclose it, and Michael Cohen paid her off to keep her quiet, which he did and which he succeeded in. And it was important because it was in October of 2016, right before the election.
Sure.
Was it a crime? Was it an unlawful campaign contribution? Michael Cohen pleaded guilty to that. But again, as with so much with Trump, it's immoral behavior. It's just a disgrace. And then lying about his relationship with her as well.
Right.
That's what's really that to me is the offense here, much more than anything than an actual criminal offense.
Mm-hmm. Jeffrey, President Trump passed 4 executive orders this last weekend. He's getting a lot of heat for circumventing Congress by doing so. People are saying that the Supreme Court, when they didn't overturn the Barack Obama passed executive order with DACA, that it opened the door for him to actually pass these 4 executive orders. Do you agree with that or not?
I'm kind of baffled by these executive orders. I think the real story is that they're not going to do much one way or another. This idea that, he's somehow commanding these states, which are all completely out of money, to pay unemployment compensation that just on his command. That's just silly. I think he probably does have the right to change the withholding on for Social Security and Medicare. The problem is the tax may still be owed, and if he may be setting up the people who get this so-called tax cut for an enormous tax bill later. So I think the real story of these four executive orders is not so much their constitutionality, but whether they'll do any good for anyone. I mean, this country is in a very serious recession, and what really needs to be done is Congress needs to pass laws, and the president needs to sign it. We have a structure of government that requires major changes to go through Congress, not just through the executive branch. And that's what's needed given the magnitude of the problems, but we just haven't seen it done yet.
A couple more quick questions, and then we'll let you go. He's Jeffrey Toobin, a CNN legal analyst, and his new book just out, True Crimes and Misdemeanors. All right, Jeffrey, let's have a little fun here. If you had to choose one person at CNN to play craps with in Las Vegas, who would it be?
Oh, gosh. I'm thinking, Anderson Cooper is so unruffled and so, like one of the things about television is like what you see is what you get. People's personalities pretty much are what you see.
Really? Is that true?
My mother was a television correspondent. Marlene Sanders, one of the pioneering. And one of the things she always used to say is, television is not a good medium for conveying information, but it is a good medium for conveying character. It's like you can't fake your personality on TV.
So Cuomo's a hothead.
Wolf Blitzer is a calm, avuncular, fun guy.
Right.
Well, not fun. I don't know if fun is the right word. Wolf is like a good guy.
Yep.
Anderson is a cool customer, and I would like him to be my guide when I'm getting a little too excited at the table.
Fair enough. So is it fair to characterize Chris Cuomo as a nice guy, but a little bit of a hothead? Like, have you seen, we've seen the videos where, and by the way, I'm on his side. People coming up to him and insulting him in front of his family. It's inexcusable. I don't blame him for getting ticked off. But Cuomo strikes me as a guy that can get a little fiery, but a good dude. And Don Lemon, strikes me as a guy that just likes to go out and have a good time and suck back a few beers. Is that fair?
Can I tell you, who calls Chris Cuomo a hothead?
Who's that?
Chris Cuomo. And no, Chris is the first person to acknowledge that he burns a little hot, and this goes back to our earlier conversation about how the president has inflamed people against the news media, and Chris, because of his last name, because his brother's the governor here in New York, he's a bigger target than most of us. And it's outrageous what he's had to put up. Has he reacted perfectly every time? Being the mere mortal that he is, of course he has not. But he is a good person.
That's good to know.
A smart guy, and I am definitely on his side in this conflict.
I'm happy to hear that. We have other legal experts on this show, Jeffrey, and for example, Judge Napolitano, who I have a tremendous amount of respect for. I think he does a
love Judge Nap.
Yeah, isn't he great? I mean, he does a great job on Fox News. He's fair. He's not biased. And listen, I'm not trying to trash anybody here, but then I see Alan Dershowitz on all the time, and I just feel like, especially over the course of the last several years, the man has lost credibility. That's just my personal opinion. When you see legal experts like that maybe you don't have as much respect for, I mean, how do you even go about that?
I just keep my mouth shut. I mean, it's like you see people on the radio who do a lousy job. What are you going to do about it?
That's true.
Nothing. I mean, it's a big world out there. I'm glad there are jobs for legal analysts. I find the Alan Dershowitz situation kind of heartbreaking. Alan was my criminal law professor.
Yeah, what happened to him? What happened?
Yeah, my first class on my first day of law school was criminal law with Alan Dershowitz, and I have a lot of residual fondness for him.
Yeah.
I think a lot has gone wrong late in life for Alan. He's been accused in this Jeffrey Epstein situation, which he vehemently denies. I think he's become very obsessed with Israel-related issues that I think has caused him to become alienated from the Democratic Party. I just think a lot. It's been a lot, and Alan is in his 80s too. Alan's not a kid anymore,
right?
So I think it's really sad and unfortunate what's gone on with Alan.
Yeah, agree.
I've known him for a really long time.
Agree. All right. Last thing, I want to give you a chance certainly to plug your book a little bit. How do people find it? How can people buy the book? And if you want to add anything to it that we haven't already talked about, go for it, Jeffrey.
Well, I mean, it is true that this book draws certain conclusions about Trump and Mueller and all these people, but mostly what it is a story. I mean, it's a narrative. It's a behind-the-scenes story of how the Mueller investigation went forward, and then the impeachment investigation in Congress. So that's the kind of story I really like to write, which is a story rather than it's just sort of like an op-ed piece telling people what to think. As for, people can find it at a bookstore, if there are any open bookstores in Vegas. I hope there are.
There are.
But obviously, online is the easiest way at Amazon or any of the other online booksellers.
Sure. I lied quickly. Who's going to win, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? Who you got?
You know what I learned in 2016?
Don't make assumptions.
That I have no ability to predict the future because I was so wrong.
Yeah.
And so I am going to, in the best political tradition, refuse to answer your question.
Fair enough.
Say, we'll see what happens.
Yes, we will see what happens. Well, Jeffrey Toobin, I really do appreciate your time. Check out his book, True Crimes and Misdemeanors. And Jeffrey, I look forward to playing craps with you, and I hope you have a 45-minute roll when you come to Vegas, all right?
Done, man. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Jeffrey.
No,
appreciate
thanks a lot,
it.
Jeffrey.
He is CNN chief legal analyst Jeffrey Toobin. Smart guy.
Very smart guy.
And his new book out, True Crimes, Misdemeanors. You see him on Anderson Cooper, Don Lemon, Chris Cuomo, Jake Tapper. He makes the rounds almost every night.